There are 4 unseen weapons that turn an ordinary man into a force no obstacle dares to challenge. The first is the mastery of words. Every word spoken is a seed, carrying either destruction or creation. When a man speaks with faith, his words carve paths through impossibilities. To declare with conviction is to command the unseen to manifest. A careless tongue weakens, but a disciplined tongue establishes dominion. The second is unshakable faith. Faith is not timid hope, it is absolute knowing. A man who stands without fear, who sees divine supply behind every closed door, cannot be broken. Where doubt collapses, faith builds. Faith clothes a man in armor unseen, making him untouchable to defeat. The third is inner discipline. Thoughts ungoverned are thieves of destiny. Emotions uncontrolled are chains around the soul. But when a man governs his own mind, when he refuses to surrender to anger, lust, or despair, he becomes a vessel of pure force. The disciplined man does not chase, he attracts. He does not react, he directs. The fourth is silent assurance. Power is not in noise but in stillness. The man who moves without hurry, who speaks without strain, who stands in quiet certainty unsettles all opposition. His calmness is his strength. His silence is thunder to the hearts of the restless. These 4, mastery of words, unshakable faith, inner discipline and silent assurance, are the pillars of danger. For a man who walks in them no longer depends on the world bends to him. Words are not harmless sounds, they are invisible swords that cut through the fabric of life and shape destiny. Every utterance sets in motion currents that circle back to the speaker with exact precision. A man who understands the power of his words becomes a master over circumstances, while the careless speaker becomes a servant to chaos of his own making. Words are law, and when spoken with conviction, they engrave themselves upon the unseen, summoning events, people, and opportunities to obey the decree. The tongue is not a small instrument, but the rudder that steers the ship of life, and whichever way it is turned, the entire vessel must follow. Consider how a careless word can sow discord, diminish confidence, or close the very door a man longs to open. One moment of complaint may undo months of silent faith. To say I cannot is to bind the feet with chains, and to speak lack is to invite poverty to sit at the table. Yet to declare I can is to set angels to work, and to proclaim abundance is to open channels that were once sealed. What a man continually speaks, whether in jest, complaint, or certainty, becomes the law of his life. Many think their difficulties come from chance, but the seed was planted in their own speech, watered by repetition, and harvested in disappointment. But the man who guards his words as treasure wields a power few can withstand. He speaks not carelessly but consciously, not to describe the present but to command the future. He does not echo conditions, he creates them. If a wall blocks his path, he does not say, "The wall is too high," but declares, "The way is open." That word of faith is sharper than stone, more enduring than steel, and the wall must dissolve. Life itself is compelled to obey the command of the spoken word when charged with faith. To master words is not to chatter endlessly, but to understand silence as well. Silence is the womb of power, but words are its birth. Too many waste speech on gossip, complaint, or idle chatter, scattering energy and inviting disorder. The disciplined man speaks rarely, but when he speaks, his words strike like lightning. They are not suggestions but decrees, and the universe arranges itself accordingly. Every promise uttered with certainty becomes a contract signed in the unseen, and every declaration of success becomes a summons for opportunity to appear. One must also understand the tone of speech, for words without conviction are shadows with no substance. To say, "I will prosper" while trembling in doubt is to plant a weak seed that withers, but to say, "I prosper now" with the full weight of faith is to demand immediate results. Life hears only conviction, it ignores hesitation. Thus, the mastery of words requires the mastery of belief. A weak word springs from a weak heart, but a strong word arises from unshakable assurance. When both word and faith unite, nothing can resist. Think of the man who continually affirms health in the face of sickness. He does not describe the illness, for to do so is to give it strength. Instead, he he proclaims life, vitality, and wholeness, until even the body obeys the command. Words are architects of flesh as much as of fortune. A body, a business, a relationship, all are built first in speech before they stand in form. To speak is to create, to remain careless is to destroy. This mastery requires vigilance. Many undo themselves not through great declarations, but through small slips of the tongue. They pray in the morning for success and complain by afternoon of obstacles. They affirm love yet mutter bitterness. The two currents cancel each other and the sea remains still. But the disciplined man does not allow contradiction. His words move in one direction only, like a river flowing steadily toward the sea, and eventually nothing can stand against its course. He knows the law, every idle word returns. Therefore he watches them as a king guards his treasury. It is also true that words spoken over others return multiplied to the speaker. To curse another is to curse oneself. To bless another is to increase one's own fortune. The one who constantly criticizes plants thorns in his own path, but the one who affirms greatness in others enlarges his own greatness. The law does not sleep, it records every word and brings it back as harvest. To understand this is to walk carefully, speaking only that which uplifts, strengthens, and creates. When a man masters his words, he becomes dangerous in the highest sense. He is no longer tossed by chance or beaten by circumstance. His speech shapes the battlefield before the fight begins. He enters no negotiation as a beggar but as a ruler, because his words are not weak requests but laws. Even those who resist him unconsciously bend to his decree. For the word spoken with faith has an authority that cannot be denied. Mastery of words is mastery of destiny. To speak is to command. To remain silent is to gather strength. To complain is to surrender. To declare is to conquer. A man who speaks consciously, with faith and discipline, holds the keys of power. He becomes a creator among men, a ruler among circumstances, and a dangerous force to every obstacle that dares oppose him. Faith that cannot be shaken is a weapon greater than armies, for it bends the unseen to obey and compels the visible to conform. When a man stands in absolute knowing, refusing to bow to fear or doubt, he becomes a force that nothing can oppose. Faith is not hope, for hope waits while faith takes. Hope hesitates while faith commands. Faith declares the promise already fulfilled, and by its unyielding assurance, the fulfillment appears. The man of faith does not question the path when it grows dark. He does not tremble when the storm rages, nor does he beg for mercy when doors close. He walks as if the way is already open, for in truth it is. His vision is fixed not on appearances but on reality behind them, and he knows that reality answers the voice of faith. Circumstances are shadows, shifting and deceiving, but faith is substance, eternal and immovable. A man who builds on it cannot be shaken, for he holds the very foundation of creation. Fear whispers its lies, scarcity, danger, failure, but faith silences every voice with a single decree. To say I am supplied when the purse is empty is faith. To say I am protected when enemies surround is faith. To say I succeed now when defeat stares in the face is faith. And when spoken with certainty, these words summon the unseen power that makes them fact. The man of faith does not measure results by what eyes see today, but by what the heart knows eternally. He knows the law, believe without wavering, and the thing believed becomes flesh. Unshakable faith is dangerous because it cannot be manipulated. A man who fears can be controlled, bribed, or broken, but the man who knows that supply, success, and protection flow from a higher source is untouchable. He does not bow to the threats of the world, nor does he run after its crumbs. He walks with calm certainty, and this unsettles all who would oppose him. His faith makes him a magnet for every opportunity, for life itself obeys his conviction. Many fail not because the way was impossible, but because their faith faltered at the first resistance. They declared with confidence in the morning and doubted by evening. They believed while things were easy, but surrendered when challenged. True faith does not waver with the wind. It does not bend because time has passed or obstacles have appeared. It holds the vision steady until the unseen crystallizes into form. The man of unshakable faith does not wait passively. He speaks, acts, and walks as if the result is already his. The very act of standing firm becomes the call that summons its fulfillment. Every trial is a test of faith, not a denial of it. The greater the obstacle, the greater the opportunity to prove that faith is stronger than sight. When pressed by difficulties, the man of faith does not complain, he declares. He does not describe the mountain, he commands it to move. He does not magnify the storm, he speaks peace to it. In this refusal to waver lies his power. Life yields to such determination, for it has no choice but to reflect the conviction that shapes it. Faith is substance, and substance is reality. The one who understands this no longer chases after appearances. He knows that what he seeks is already his in the unseen, waiting only for his unwavering assurance to draw it forth. He does not question when or how, for questioning scatters energy. He simply knows, and that knowing is creative. The doubter is tossed between belief and disbelief, never rooted, never settled. The faithful man is rooted in certainty, and all things must come to him. Words without faith are powerless, but words filled with faith are commands to the universe. When a man speaks from unshakable faith, his voice carries authority. It is not pleading but declaring. It is not wishful but commanding. The world hears not the syllables but the conviction behind them, and that conviction is irresistible. One man with such faith becomes greater than multitudes who merely hope, for hope waits but faith creates. Unshakable faith strips fear of its power. Fear thrives only where faith is absent. When faith takes hold, fear dies instantly, for it cannot breathe in the atmosphere of certainty. A man who fears nothing cannot be ruled, cannot be broken, cannot be bribed. His faith makes him free, and that freedom makes him dangerous. He is not swayed by appearances, not trapped by delays, not shaken by rejection. He knows that what is his by divine law cannot be withheld, and so he stands unmoved until the promise is delivered into his hand. This is why unshakable faith is the secret of power. It is the ground on which words stand, the fire that fuels discipline, the calmness that radiates silent assurance. Without it, a man drifts, but with it he commands. To believe without trembling, to declare without doubting, to stand without retreating. This is the essence of unshakable faith, and the man who possesses it becomes untouchable, unstoppable, and dangerous beyond measure. The man who cannot rule himself will always be ruled by others, but the man who conquers his own mind, his own emotions, and his own desires becomes a master over life. Inner discipline is the foundation of true power, for without it, every gift is wasted, every opportunity lost, and every strength scattered. It is not the world that defeats most men but their lack of mastery over themselves. To govern the tongue, the temper, the appetite, the thought. This is the work that fashions kings from common men. Thoughts are the seeds of destiny, and a mind left unchecked grows weeds of fear, doubt, and distraction. Most men drift because they allow their thinking to wander, entertaining defeat, imagining lack, rehearsing anger, and feeding weakness. But the disciplined man watches every thought as a guard at the gate. He allows no intruder to plant its poison, no fear to settle, no complaint to remain. He rejects the false at once and affirms the true with certainty. This inner vigilance makes him untouchable, for nothing can take root in his mind except what he chooses to plant. Emotions, too, must be mastered. Anger that erupts without control blinds judgment, weakens influence, and opens the door to regret. Desire without discipline enslaves, chaining a man to pleasures that devour his strength. Fear that is unchecked paralyzes the will and corrodes vision. The man who does not command his emotions is a prisoner in his own body. But when he refuses to be ruled by passing feelings, when he remains calm in provocation and steady in temptation, he becomes immovable. Others rage, others despair, others chase shadows, but he walks steady as iron. His very presence unsettles those bound by impulse, for they sense in him a strength that does not bend. Discipline is not repression but direction. It is not to kill desire but to channel it. The river without banks becomes a swamp, but the river with discipline becomes a force that drives mills, powers cities, and carves valleys. So it is with the energies of man. Without discipline, they dissipate in indulgence and distraction. With discipline, they gather into one irresistible stream that pushes him forward to destiny. The disciplined man does not chase everything, he chooses the essential. He does not react to every call, he responds only to what serves his vision. In this focus lies his danger, for nothing can divert him once he has set his course. Many men are defeated, not by lack of strength, but by lack of order. They begin much but finish little. They chase many desires but gain none. They burn with ambition but cool in laziness. Discipline is the fire that burns steadily when passion flickers, the steel that endures when emotion wavers, to rise early when the body longs for rest, to hold silence when the tongue longs to lash, to continue the task when the mind longs to quit. This is discipline, and it is the mark of power. The man of discipline does not waste himself in excess. He eats to strengthen, not to indulge. He speaks to command, not to gossip. He works not in bursts of frenzy but with steady endurance. He does not need the whip of circumstance, for he rules himself by inner command. His life is not chaotic because his spirit is ordered, and that order shapes everything around him. Others may stumble through confusion, but he walks a straight line. Others may scatter energy on distraction, but his power gathers like a storm. Self-control is more feared than force, for the man who controls himself cannot be manipulated. Threats cannot move him, flattery cannot sway him, temptations cannot lure him. He does not rise and fall with moods, nor does he sell himself for momentary pleasures. He is constant, and constancy is power. Men sense in him something beyond the ordinary, for he is not enslaved by what enslaves others. His strength does not come from chance but from discipline, and this makes him a danger to every obstacle, for no weakness within remains for the enemy to exploit. Discipline of thought leads to mastery of word, and mastery of word shapes reality. Discipline of emotion leads to calmness, and calmness unsettles opponents. Discipline of action leads to achievement, for steady work accomplishes what frenzy never can. Each act of inner discipline builds a fortress, and soon the man who once struggled against himself stands as a ruler over his own nature. From that throne he governs his outer world, for the one who commands himself commands everything. The undisciplined man is like a city without walls, open to invasion from every fear, every passion, every distraction. The disciplined man is a fortress on a hill. Storms beat against it, but it does not fall. Temptations call to it, but it does not move. Enemies threaten it, but it does not yield. Within that fortress is calm strength, and from that calm strength radiates an influence that cannot be resisted. To conquer oneself is the greatest of victories, and the man who achieves it becomes dangerous, for he owes nothing to circumstance, nothing to luck, nothing to the whims of others. His power is rooted in himself, unshaken, unstoppable, and unassailable. The loudest man in the room is the weakest, but the one who carries himself in quiet certainty shakes the ground without a word. True power does not announce itself with noise or struggle. It radiates silently, unsettling resistance and commanding obedience. Silent assurance is the invisible armor that no weapon can pierce, for it is born of absolute confidence in the unseen. A man who carries this stillness within becomes magnetic, dangerous, and unshakable, for he knows that what is his cannot be taken, and what he seeks is already given. The world mistakes noise for strength, but noise betrays insecurity. The restless man argues, defends, explains, and proves, yet beneath his words lies doubt. The man of assurance does not argue, for he knows. He does not plead, for he possesses. He does not rush, for he understands that nothing can pass him by. His calmness is not weakness, but mastery. Others wear armor of iron, but he wears the armor of certainty, and certainty bends events, people, and circumstances in his favor. Silent assurance unsettles opponents more than anger or aggression. The man who stands calm in the midst of threats radiates a strength that cannot be measured. His stillness confuses the attacker, for it reveals no fear. His silence disarms the manipulator, for it offers no foothold. His assurance breaks resistance without a struggle, for it carries the unspoken authority of one who knows the outcome before it appears. In stillness he is feared, for others sense that he cannot be moved. The power of silent assurance is born of faith and discipline united. Faith gives the conviction, discipline gives the steadiness, and assurance becomes the fruit. It is not learned in a moment, but forged through trials where the man refuses to break, where he chooses calm when all around him screams for panic, where he walks steady while others flee in confusion. Every time he stands in silence instead of fear, assurance grows deeper. Every time he rests in certainty instead of doubt, his presence gathers more weight. Soon he carries himself with a quietness that speaks louder than any declaration. This assurance is not arrogance, for arrogance shouts, but assurance rests. Arrogance seeks recognition, but assurance is content with results. Arrogance is brittle and easily broken, but assurance is supple and cannot be snapped. It is the difference between the branch that cracks in the storm and the oak that stands unmoved. The man of assurance does not need to prove himself, for he already knows who he is and what is his. He does not need to demand, for what he commands is already on its way. His silence is thunder to the hearts of those who oppose him, for they sense in him a power beyond human force. When others rush to speak, he waits. When others scramble to act, he stands. When others fear delays, he trusts timing. His stillness is not passivity, but strength under control. The arrow drawn back waits in silence before it strikes with speed, and so it is with the assured man. His silence is the preparation of force, and when the moment comes, he moves without hesitation, for he has never doubted the outcome. This quality makes a man dangerous in the purest sense. He cannot be provoked into rashness, for insults cannot shake him. He cannot be lured into panic, for sudden loss does not unsettle him. He cannot be manipulated by fear, for he does not yield to appearances. The calmness of his presence alone is a weapon, for it exposes the insecurity of all around him. Others begin to doubt themselves simply by standing in the field of his certainty. He does not need to fight. His assurance dissolves resistance before the battle begins. Silent assurance is also magnetic. People are drawn to one who radiates calm strength. They trust him without explanation, follow him without persuasion, and believe in him without proof. They feel the current of power that flows from his quiet confidence. Opportunities, allies, and resources flow to him, for life itself is drawn to strength that does not waver. Just as water seeks the deepest place, fortune seeks the man whose assurance makes him immovable. This assurance is maintained not by outward effort, but by inward alignment. He speaks to himself with conviction, guards his thoughts with vigilance, disciplines his emotions with mastery, and out of this inner harmony flows an outer calm that cannot be shaken. His assurance does not depend on applause or agreement, for it is rooted in the unseen law that never fails. Whether alone or surrounded, whether praised or opposed, he remains the same, still, steady, and certain. The world bows not to the one who shouts, but to the one who knows. Silent assurance is that knowing, that still flame that never flickers, that presence that bends reality without struggle. The man who carries it walks among others as a hidden ruler, for without words, without noise, without explanation, his very being commands respect, and resistance melts before him. The man who masters his words speaks as a creator. The man who holds unshakable faith walks as if every promise is already fulfilled. The man who disciplines his inner world rules from within, and the man who carries silent assurance radiates a force that bends reality without effort. When these powers unite, he is no longer ordinary, for he is unmoved by fear, untouchable by circumstance, and unstoppable by opposition. His speech carves the path, his faith secures the way, his discipline carries him forward, and his assurance seals the victory before it appears. Such a man cannot be contained, for the world itself must yield to his presence, and he walks as one who knows that destiny is not something he waits for but something he commands.